All right, John, I'm excited to dive in with you. Why don't we kick it off with you telling me about these books? So you have written close to 5 books and a couple on crypto, 2 on crypto, I believe. Is that right? And I'd love to hear from you the process of writing a book. I mean, by now you must consider yourself at least a part of your DNA is an author, and so I know among other things. I'd love to just dive into that. You know, we could talk about maybe one of the most recent books, but I'd love to hear about just writing books in general and what the process has been like for you over the years.
Yeah, everybody wants to know how you get a book deal. So here's how I got my first book deal. I started writing a blog way back in the day. This was before blogs were even a thing, in the maybe mid-90s. And it was for a comedy site that we ran, the world's first comedy site. It was called Zug.com, Zug.com. And I just had this blog where I just write a humor column every day. And I wasn't getting paid. I had a day job. I was just doing it because I wanted to share my, love of being funny and just hone my craft. That went on for 4 years. I did that every day for 4 years, writing that blog. And along the way, we got some big publicity hits. You know, we got some things that kind of went viral. And then one day, out of the blue, I get this email, and it says, "Dear John, I am an editor at Kensington Books, and I would like to offer you a book deal. Wow. Are you interested?" And, you know, I got a lot of crazy email in those days. I thought, surely this can't be real. But I looked him up, and the gentleman, his name was Jeremy Ruby Strauss. It was real. He was really an editor. And he was on the vanguard of understanding how the book industry was changing. He realized if you signed up popular bloggers for a book deal, you would have a built-in audience, the people who were reading that blog. Now, today, this is just common wisdom. This is how everybody does it. But he was really one of the first to figure that out. And so he was just finding people with a large blog following him, offering them book deals. And that's how it came about. My first book was a humor book called Prank the Monkey. And then what followed from that was a really successful career with Jeremy. He went over to Simon & Schuster and ultimately ended up publishing our new blockchain books that you just referenced, including Blockchain for Everyone, which is the blockchain investing guide that we came out with about 3 years ago. It's been very successful, and he's just been a terrific editor ever since.
And what I certainly don't appreciate it. I've never gone through this process of writing a book. But certainly now it's incredibly easy to spin up a blog on Medium or Substack or something.
Yeah.
What's the worlds, I feel like, merge together between books and blogs because, you know, I consume a book on a Kindle. I'll download it digitally the same way I would on a blog. Why do you need a book deal in the first place as of today?
It's a great question. And books give you credibility. So they give you a platform with which then to build a lot of other things. And there is a very different process for writing a book, of course, than writing a blog. And the primary thing is, especially a book that goes through, you know, a big publisher like Simon & Schuster, you have so many people looking at it and vetting it and thinking about it. And these are people with 10,000 hours of experience in the industry. They've just read literally thousands of books. So they know what makes a good book. And they can quickly spot any sort of holes in your thinking and logical arguments. And they can just give you concrete tips on making it better. So you don't typically get that with a blog. And I also do a lot of blogging, even today, where you're writing something and you're publishing it the same day, right? And then you're getting feedback from that. However, blogs are incredibly helpful for not, again, honing your craft, but also thinking through the arguments or the sort of statements or the ideas that you want to put forth into the world. So the takeaway for all this is you want to follow your passion and you want to create things and put good things into the world that are at the core of your own personal being. So like you, Mike, you've done over 300 episodes of Beyond the Coin. That's mind-blowing to me. And you could only do that if you were really passionate about doing it. And so it's that passion that's turned it into a great product. And I'm sure already this has led to a lot of, you know, really interesting opportunities for you, just as it did a book deal for me. That's how it works.
I love it. I love it. And so in the case of your most recent, the Blockchain for Everyone, what did that start off as? Hey, I want to write a book. Let's channel Bitcoin. Let's dive in and just write what comes through. Or was it like, oh, I just discovered something that I need to share? Or how did that process evolve for you?
Yeah, it's my own story. And it starts when I bought Bitcoin back in, I think, 2013. And my wife and I went to our local bank and made a wire transfer to Belarus. It was very hard to buy Bitcoin in those days.
Yeah.
And I talked my wife into it, and we went out and did this wire transfer. We got the Bitcoin, and we just held on to it. And at the time we bought Bitcoin, I think the price was about 125 per Bitcoin. So we bought a big boatload of it. And then, 4 years later, the price of Bitcoin had gone up to, I think, over $10,000 per Bitcoin. And I said to my wife, this is the greatest investment we have ever made. Let's go all in. So that's what we did. So we run this marketing company called Media Shower. And at the time, we had many different clients in many different industries. And we decided we're going to go all in on Bitcoin and blockchain companies. And this was the height of the ICO boom in 2017. It was very exciting, very frothy, sky high prices. And things went really great for 3 months. And then the bottom fell out of the market. The price of Bitcoin tanked. It went down to like 2,000. All of our clients dried up overnight. We had to lay off, most of our staff. And then things got really bad.
Yeah.
So as we continued to hang on, it just got worse and worse. We went through crypto winter. My wife and I had 2 mortgages out on our house, and we were just about ready to lose it all. Somehow we hung in there, and we turned the business around. Today it's bigger and stronger than ever. So the book is really my process, our process of going through that great roller coaster ride of Bitcoin and what we learned about successful Bitcoin investing since then. So, now we have built it back to over $1 million personal income, not just our business, which is many multiples of that. And what we learned from that is what I want to share with the world. And that's really what's in blockchain for everyone.
Yeah. Well, it must have been an awesome journey. Awesome up and down.
Not really.
Yeah. No. I don't mean
awesome.
I don't mean awesome as in positive all the time, but awesome as in you come out and it's like, oh, that was crazy.
Yeah, if you mean awesome that we said awe a lot, yes, that's right. Oh.
When was that? What time period? Was that 2017?
So that was 2017 to 2019, let's say. Yeah, was that crazy swing in our fortune.
Yeah, totally. At that time in 2018, I was running a crypto marketing, a crypto exchange. So we built software so people could exchange, they could trade Bitcoin for gift cards. And at the time, most of the people that we were serving were in Africa and Southeast Asia. So people didn't have access to Bitcoin in, an exchange like Coinbase, like everyone else did here in the US. So they would go in, they'd buy gift cards, and they would want to trade those because that was a fast way to go from currency in your hand to Bitcoin. And in some way, we were kind of insulated from the implosion because we didn't raise money and we were self-funded. And over there in Africa and Southeast Asia, everyone was still very excited because they saw the practical use case of Bitcoin. Whereas in the US, we have such a robust banking system that, a lot of people are like you and, me, and they're thinking, oh, I want to invest in this as an asset that can go up. It's not doing anything for me. It's just a place I can throw some money. But there it's different. It's like, wow, this is a safe place I can keep money. I can move between countries and not have to worry about it. The bank's not going to come and take it. It's incredibly powerful. And I see now why the price goes up, not only from speculation, but from the reality of how it's better than local currencies in so many ways.
I have this theory that the future wants something from us. The future is kind of calling backwards in time to us today. And we intuitively understand or realize that, which is why many of us who think about the future gravitate toward these new technologies. And we realize there are huge investment opportunities if we make smart strategic decisions now. And even when we go through these kind of roller coaster price swings, if we stick to that vision of what the future is going to be like, how these digital currencies are going to transform the world, we can really come out very well off on the other side of that and hopefully change the world for the better along the way.
How do you split it up? I mean, the world of crypto blockchain is so large now. It's so vast, encompassing decentralized finance and layer one protocols and NFTs, on and on. There's many different like pathways you can go down. Do you take an approach? Have you gone down one pathway deep and tried to understand exactly what's going on in that area, or take a more broad approach and just get a lay of the land across all the different projects?
Yeah, so from a high level, I carve it into two buckets. The first is crypto, and the second is kind of everything else in blockchain. So the everything else will be these new use cases that we'll have with insurance and medical and identity and things like that. I think that's still largely a ways off. What's really here right now, and obviously very hot, is crypto. So within crypto, we could further carve that up into some of the subcategories that you're talking about. But from a super high level, our principle is very similar to like the Warren Buffett, Benjamin Graham idea of value investing. And what we're trying to do is find great crypto projects that are led by strong management teams. And we're trying to buy and hold a small number of these and hold on to them for the long term. So we're talking like 5+ years. And that sounds simple, but it's easier said than done because there's so much excitement and there's so many rabbit holes that you can go down. And you have to ignore most of those from an investor standpoint. So for most people, if you would have just bought and held Bitcoin, over the last 10 years, obviously you'd be a multimillionaire. But there's still lots of those opportunities available. What we need to do is find those projects, buy and hold a small number of them for the long term, and that's what's going to lead to long-term wealth.
Do you specifically invest actively? Do you pick projects and spend a significant portion of your week screening and doing diligence on projects, or do you more default to others, or do you use like a crypto VC fund? I'm curious how deep you go on crypto strategic investing.
Sure. So we have a daily investor newsletter. Our website is called Bitcoin Market Journal. And at Bitcoin Market Journal, we've got a team of analysts and journalists who are out there actively researching all of the latest crypto tokens and projects and coins. And again, what we do is then send out in our daily newsletter our latest findings. We do a lot of rating and review of these new tokens using our blockchain investor scorecard, which is a model we've developed to kind of compare apples to apples against very different types of tokens. And we also look at the quantitative metrics. In other words, kind of how things are moving, how many users a project or token is attracting, and so forth. And so on a daily basis, we're deep into this. I mean, we're looking at all the latest DeFi, NFT, DAOs are very hot right now. And so we have a really good sense of kind of the phases that the crypto market goes through, where we are, which ones are worth looking at, which ones are not worth your time at all. And happy to answer any of those any questions on any of those subcategories.
So out of the scorecard that you created, what are the leverage points? Like, what are out of all the scores that you could give this new project, what are the things that you've seen that really move the needle or tend to be the major indicators? Is it a qualitative assessment of how senior the lead developers are in the project, or some sort of quantitative insight you can get? I'm not sure if anything comes to mind, but I'm interested in that.
Yeah, so we're really proud of this scorecard. It's been academically published and peer-reviewed. And it basically has about 25 questions that you ask of any new token project. And they're broken up into 5 categories. See if I can remember them. So there's market, like, can we define who this market is? Who are they going after? There's competitive moat. So in other words, do they have some kind of sustainable competitive advantage, or is it going to be easy for somebody to come in and just swoop in and take that business over? Management team is huge for us. Like, do they have a track record of success? Are they honest and trustworthy? The tokenomics. So the tokenomics are basically like, how is the token structured? Very important principles to understand for your future value of your investment. Like, can they just mint tokens at will, or do you know how many tokens are going to be are going to be issued for a project? And the fifth one is the user adoption. So do they have a credible path to attracting lots of users? Because one thing we know for sure is the more users a blockchain or token attracts, generally speaking, the higher value that token is going to be. So the number of users is really critical to look at from a quantitative perspective. So on our scorecard, we're looking at what's their path to user growth? Like, can they credibly get to that point where they start to see the hockey stick curve and get those network effects? So based on the 25 questions broken into 5 categories, we basically are able to give each token a 1 to 5 star rating. So at the end of the day, it's like a Yelp review. And by doing that, we're able to compare really different types of projects. I mean, you might have a DeFi token on one side, and then you might have like a real estate NFT on the other. Those are 2 very different things. But by using this framework, we're able to net them all out to kind of a 1 to 5 star rating and compare apples to apples.
It almost feels like a Morningstar rating where exactly. The question is not what restaurant should I go to eat? It's like, what is the likelihood that this will be it's hard to say what a good investment it is. It's something could be stable if that's your goal, but it could go wildly up, but then it comes with higher risk. Do you view that 1 to 5 rating as being just kind of a thumb in the air, like it's a good project, or does it specifically answer the question, the upside return in 5 years? What's the likelihood that this will be a big return in 5 years? Is that kind of how you think about the rating, the actual output of the survey?
That's a good question. No one's asked that. I see it as quality. So I see it as a quality score overall. So as an example, we just published 2. One of them was for Polygon, I believe. And as you know, like one of the big sort of, layer 2 solutions out there, it's growing like a weed. And I think we gave it like a 4.6. So pretty high. And then the other one that we did recently was the Shiba Inu, which is sort of a meme coin. It's like a joke.
Sort of.
And I
Definitely
think that I think that got a 3.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see that lower personally. Yeah. But when you run it through all those criteria, it actually does have a number of things going for it. Regardless, I felt really good about sort of releasing those 2 back to back, because I said, well, it's doing its job. It is working as a good sort of quality score. Now, to your question, it doesn't mean Shiba is not going to go up. You could get crazy rich off of Shiba, right? Like, we can't ever predict price.
Yeah.
We just can't.
Yeah.
But what we can do is say, again, value investing, if we find the quality projects, we invest in them and we hold them patiently over the long term, we should see those all go up in price, or in the aggregate go up in price, and our investments appreciate over time.
Yeah.
We can't say that about, the sort of meme coins and
well,
other
you
fads.
could definitely predict price. You just can't say you're going to be right.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's the question. Don't you get that question all the time from people?
Yeah.
What's the price of Bitcoin?
Yeah. What do you think the price of Bitcoin is going to be? And even the rich, even the comment on, it's like, you can be rich, but then what are you going to do with it? You're going to keep it in Bitcoin? You're going to keep it in Shiba Inu? Like, it's all, what is it? I think of wealth as being physical things. If you don't have those, you can have all the Shiba Inu in the world, but unless you translate that until, you have to sell in order to make a profit. Sell and ideally buy something that's useful in your life. So I want to stay on this topic a little bit longer. So you assess these new projects using these 25 questions, breaking up into 5 categories. Is there a fund that you're managing internally, or are you through your company offering this as a free piece of information for people, or people subscribe to this? And is that going to change over time, do you see?
Yeah. So, Mike, we're really passionate about helping people understand how to make good crypto investing decisions. And again, going back to my personal story, I don't want other people to have to go through what I did. So a lot of what we talk about is diversifying and making sure that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, not going all in on Bitcoin as we did. So we have what are called our blockchain believer portfolios. And the concept behind that is that you're going to have overall kind of mix of investments. You're not going to put all your kids' college fund in Shiba Inu, but you're going to say, look, I need to invest in a mix of stocks and bonds, kind of the traditional boring stuff. And then crypto being like sort of a slice of the pie, maybe up to 10%. So in these blockchain believer portfolios, we've been tracking that over the last 3 years since we put this idea out there. And we've shown that the results from just that small slice of the pie in crypto, even if it's just Bitcoin, increases your returns over a sort of traditional stocks and bonds only by over like 120% just in like the last 3 years. So that diversification is what we're trying to teach people. We don't charge for any of that information. The scorecard that I've talked about is all open source. You can Google Blockchain Investor Scorecard and download it yourself. We're trying to make these tools available to as many people as possible so that we can make better decisions and help this industry really mature, get away from kind of the speculative gambling culture that, is still in a lot of parts of crypto, and make it something that's going to help people build long-term wealth and ultimately financial freedom.
Yeah, it does seem to be split. A lot of projects are explicitly gambles. I mean, they're just meme coins that come out, and those can be fun. I mean, the lottery can be fun if you are not, just like alcohol, sex, and drugs can be fun as long as you don't abuse it and do too much of it. Like if you put in, $100 into some meme coin, if that's within your budget and that goes up or down, there's a thrill to that. There's some excitement to it. But then there are the projects that offer like a pretty fundamental shift in how some industry works, like healthcare or the internet itself. Are there some projects that you've seen that stand out in the latter category that seem potentially suited to make a big change in the way we live and society works in some sectors? Others, yeah.
Yeah. So, Mike, what you've just described is projects that add value to the world. So, again, back to value investing. The principle is you want to find great projects, that are doing great things, making great products or services that are run by great teams, and hopefully at a fairly low price. And I think the classic here is Ethereum. So Ethereum, is essentially, I think of it as like the operating system for blockchain. It's like this giant computer that people are building all of these new blockchain-based projects upon. Now, Ethereum is not perfect, as we all know. It's slow, it's expensive, and it's got scalability problems. But the basic value of that to us is like one of the greatest investing opportunities of our lifetimes, because the way technology works is that usually you only have a handful of winners, one or two winners in any big category. So think about search, for example, like it's really Google. That's it, right? Like maybe Bing as a distant second. Or think about operating systems. You have Windows and Apple. That's pretty much it. Or Mac, iPhones and Android. So it always ends up, or usually ends up, as either a monopoly like Google, or it ends up as an oligopoly, which is two or a small handful. So when you think about who's going to own blockchain platforms in the future, like currently Ethereum is pretty much the 800-pound gorilla. We don't know if that's going to stay that way 10 years in the future, but today certainly that is, and that's why we think Ethereum is such a great opportunity. That's how we think about these. I could go into other projects, but that kind of gives you an idea of the value-based approach that we're looking for.
Yeah. I think of it as like it's almost this pattern in the universe that things consolidate, whether it's wealth.
Laws.
Yeah, it's what's the term for it? Sort of asymmetrical distribution of resources over time. If you play Monopoly, the game, long enough, like somebody's going to have all the money and everyone else is going to have zero. And it's like, there's something deeply truthful about that. And I could see that being true across the lines where crypto competes. You know, Ethereum has competitors, but then there is also big projects that aren't competitive to Ethereum, in many different projects that aren't competitive. Of course. So what would we call that? Like, that's the layer one competition protocols. What are other categories do you see? Like, I mean, there's a ton. Yeah. Keep going on. Are there other projects that stand out to you that you've recently?
Yeah. You've put your finger on something important, which is like, we're looking for the laws or the principles behind the way the world works. And those do exist, right? Like gravity and electricity and magnetism. Those are examples of the kind of natural laws. And those same types of natural laws are present in crypto markets, in all financial markets. And so what we're trying to do is sort of plug into those laws. So we've just talked about one, which is this idea of consolidation, that you're going to have this wild experimentation at the beginning, and over time, those are going to consolidate into one or two winners in each category. So we have a page on Bitcoin Market Journal around sector investing. And the principle in traditional stocks is that within a sector, and they've identified sectors like, you know, healthcare and IT and things like that. Well, there's a great chart that we have there that we actually got from Reddit, a Reddit user who basically created a chart of the different sectors within crypto that are likely to each, again, have one or two winners in the future. So think of some of these sectors as like lending platforms, for example, right? Or healthcare or stable coins. Like, all these things are eventually going to end up having one or two winners, most likely. In the meantime, there'll be lots of experimentation along the way. We don't really care about the experimentation. We want to find the one or two winners, and we want to place some big bets on those in the early days, or whenever we feel reasonably certain that we've got a winner. So that's a very helpful framework to use, because then you can start to say, instead of like looking at, 100,000 projects out there, let's focus it down to 12 sectors, and let's just look at the handful of likely contenders for each of those sectors. That's another great way of narrowing it down.
Yeah, there is an overwhelming number of projects and people working on it. So how do you spend your days now? Is this a primary focus for you, thinking about the different crypto projects, evaluating these projects, talking to different founders? Are you in the weeds on that, or is that more on the team, and this is a piece of content your company puts out there?
Yeah, first of all, I have the greatest job. I love my job. It's a joy to get up every day and go to work in my commute of 20 feet into my home office. And what we do is, first of all, we have this marketing company, Media Shower, that I mentioned in our book. And that's kind of our primary hustle. And so many clients that we work with there in the technology, finance, and crypto space. So we kind of advise them on their marketing services. Then separately, we have this newsletter and website, Bitcoin Market Journal, I just mentioned. So my time is kind of 50-50 between the two. And on Bitcoin Market Journal, I am frequently reviewing the work done by our team. But also I edit or contribute to the daily newsletter. It's edited by a great guy named Charles Bovaird. But I'll contribute different pieces to that as well. And then I write a weekly column for Bitcoin Market Journal. So it's about half and half.
Do you still do the comedy strip? You write any?
The comedy site no longer, but there's certainly humor in the. I like to think so.
Dude,
anyway.
You can't let the humor die. Can't let
the humor die, and then you'll be amused that I actually do a daily meme for the newsletter as well. Nice. So I've learned the dark art of meme making.
What's your tool? What do you use?
I use Image Flip to put them together. IMG Flip, and it's me and then like 10,000 13-year-olds.
Yeah, that's fun. I love it. I love memes. They're so much more efficient at communicating ideas than text. I swear.
I've written a whole series on memes, and I take memes very seriously because you're totally right about that. Memes are an underappreciated communication mechanism, and nobody takes them seriously. But the amount of information that you're able to pack into a single frame or a single animated GIF is crazy. And I think all the time about the similarities between viruses and memes, because memes are like viruses of the mind. And like a virus is able to pack all of this cellular information in there, the meme is able to pack a crazy amount of information in just something that if you get it, it would take you, it would take you like several paragraphs to unpack.
And also the other interesting corollary to viruses is that viruses, similar to your body and your biology, you have roughly 10 to the fifth viruses just in your body all the time. And yet we care, very recently about one or two viruses. We give them fancy names. And we really focus on that. We spend a lot of attention on introducing vaccines, and there's all this political debate. But it's like the virus. There's 10 to the fifth viruses floating around, and that I think is parallel to ideas in your mind. There's so many ideas. You could tell me about the bike when you were 5 years old. You could talk about that for 30 minutes. And every different idea is like a virus, but there's some ideas that you think about all the time. They seem to like surface. They'll come back to you. And that I think is the power of the meme. The meme it's not just an idea, like a picture is worth 1,000 words. It's not just a concept. Like I could put a owl in a tree and say like, owls are wise. It doesn't mean anything. It's not relevant today. But the artistry of it is when it's timed with relevance. So it's riding the wave of what's going on collectively. So we're all experiencing the same thought, and you put a picture and some words on it, and it's like, yeah, that's it. But it hasn't been articulated yet. So if you're ahead of the trend on the meme, if you're a good memer or a meme setter, then you're creating a meme in which everyone is having the same idea, but yet no one has quite articulated it in that format yet. And that's where I think it goes viral, is when it's like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about that too. This articulates it better than anything else I've ever seen.
They also call it going viral, right?
No coincidence.
It just shows that we intuitively understand. And again, we're talking about laws or principles. So there's this sort of natural law around how viruses spread. And then there's the same natural law, or very similar corollary around how these ideas spread in our brains. And they're very cleverly crafted, speaking as one who crafts a lot of them, to try to stick into your brain and help you understand something in a new way. And to do that, they pull together all these pieces. You did a good job, talking about some of them. But you've also got like pop culture elements that come into this, where you've got an Avengers reference or Spider-Man or something, and that is part of that communication or that sort of language that you're using, and all of this just hits you in the blink of an eye, and you either get it or it looks like a nonsense image. It looks like a non sequitur, right? That's what's so genius about memes, and why I think, given how much information we take in a daily basis, the power of them to communicate an idea super efficiently to a wide variety of people. Yeah.
And I think it's only going to get more sophisticated. Like, I think we're at base camp now with like very simple images layered on text in the background. Like, they'll start moving, and then they'll be characterized, and then three-dimensional memes. It does seem like
VR memes.
Yeah, for sure. Because there's some things you just
AR memes. You'll be walking down the street and there'll be like AR stuff, memes jumping out at you. That's like graffiti tags. It's kind of the same idea.
Yeah, frankly, it's like it almost feels like a political weapon. Weapon's kind of a negative word, but a political tool that you can use. It's it's a way to infiltrate the collective consciousness. You put a meme out there and a few people share it and it goes viral. And all of a sudden, now that's what we're all thinking about and what we want to address from a policy standpoint and what we want to talk about collectively. Yeah.
And I take this really seriously because, marketing and communication is our business. So I think a lot about what we're putting out there. We have a responsibility for it. So we have to treat that meme making, if you will, with the same kind of responsibility as if we were writing, a political manifesto or something like that. That may sound self-important, but that really is the way we look at doing this daily newsletter. So when we're creating those memes, there's a lot of thoughtfulness behind them where we're not trying to advance negative narratives about crypto, for example. We're not trying to talk about scammers. We're not trying to talk about that, nonsense. We're trying to talk about positive narratives, and we're trying to talk about how crypto is changing the world. And also we're trying to help these ideas of smart crypto investing, help those land with people. So as an example, like we'll often do something that will sort of show the difference between, a newbie investor who comes in and gambles on Shiba and somebody who's using this sort of value-based approach. But we'll do that using like a cat photo. Right.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And those are the messages that we're trying to implant really deeply in people's heads.
I saw one that you posted on Twitter, which was it was a raccoon hugging a cat, and the cat was kind of like shirking away. And the caption was, the bank was the raccoon. And it's like banks trying to welcome crypto back into the offering. And crypto investors are like, don't really want to be part of the banking system anymore. Which I think.
Yeah, so we do a lot of kind of poking fun at banks in there, which to me is an acceptable way of using your meme making powers, because what we're trying to do, in a sense, is shame the banks into getting their act together when it comes to crypto, because they've really failed not just the American public, but the global public in helping provide A, education, and B, access into the crypto world. They've just totally missed the mark on that one. So banks need to come to the table with better crypto education and products. I understand it's difficult for banks to create crypto products and the regulatory uncertainty, but you could certainly be doing a better job at understanding, educating, and welcoming the sea change in the world of fintech.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that as well.
Yeah, totally. I'm curious, when you work with individual clients or companies in the blockchain space and they hire you guys and they want marketing advice, what are the things they're generally looking for? Is it how to grow the market cap of their protocol? Is it like, hey, I want to raise money from investors and boost my personal brand or company brand or something else? What are they generally looking for?
It's interesting because most crypto clients at this stage are not terribly sophisticated on the marketing front because it's still kind of a new industry. So it hasn't really matured to the point where you have like full-blown marketing teams. That's the first challenge. The second is that it is a different industry in that it's largely decentralized. So let's say, for example, that you launch a new protocol and it becomes a smash success and the money's rolling in, and now you like hire a marketing team and then you come to Media Shower and you say, hey, help us figure out what to do next. So the challenge is you need to have a decentralized approach to your marketing, yet at the same time, you need to have some centralization of the overall marketing message. So I'll give you an example. We work with one of the biggest protocols out there, one of the biggest blockchain platforms. And, we're producing content for their centralized blog, so the blog on their website. But simultaneously, there's a decentralized blog, which is more like a curated, I think of it almost like a magazine. It's like a curated blog of different projects that are being created on this blockchain platform and interesting like developer stories, like highlighting kind of the personalities that are making this a success. So that sits on a different place than kind of the official blog. And you kind of need both, don't you? You need like the centralized approach where you can say, here's what's happening with our project. Here's our kind of marketing message. And then you need this decentralized, but you can't just let the community do marketing themselves, because that is just a road to chaos. Right. So you do need some shaping of that. You might think of it like curating, again, a blog or a magazine or a newsletter featuring the best of what's happening out there. And then you let people come in and do guest posts or things like that, but you still have editorial oversight so that they're not just promoting their own project, but they're really bringing value to that blog, and you're making a really high quality product on the decentralized side. That's the art, I think, that and the science of making it work in blockchain.
And do they generally, I assume it's the founders of these companies that you're interacting with for the most part, I guess the originators, creators of the protocol.
It depends on the size. Yeah. I mean, if they're small and new, yeah, it's still a founding team. But when they get to a certain size, they've then got usually a small marketing team.
And are they typical companies, like if you're selling a shoe or something, some consumer product, you just want more orders. So it's like dollars in, dollars out. If I could spend $10,000 on marketing and get $12,000 in revenue or profit, great, let's do it. But crypto is different, right? Because they're effectively trying to grow the market cap of the protocol. Do they have a very clear objective usually, or is it like, hey, we need to redo our brand, we just overall don't know how to get new users strategically? How disciplined or clear do you see the companies being with what they're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, it's not usually clear. Yeah. And again, part of it is often they're not sophisticated marketers, and they confuse like PR with marketing. So right. We get a lot of people that like, just get us, get somebody to write about us in Forbes. Right. That will do nothing. Like it does nothing for you long term. And instead, you got to think about building like a marketing platform, so repeatable marketing initiatives that are going to drive it in the long term. So we try to do some education around that and what that looks like. But for most crypto projects, your biggest point of leverage is developers. It's people who are coming in, who are building new stuff either on or around your product or your protocol. Because when you get more cool stuff being built within your ecosystem, that attracts like a magnet, more like orders of magnitude new users to that. So generally focusing on developers is kind of where you want to start, depending on the crypto product. And then from there, the users kind of take care of themselves. Right, so if you can make those developers the heroes, again, doing like a magazine, newsletter, blog, then you reward them with kind of social capital. And in so doing, they tell two friends and so on, and you end up with more developers and get that network effect.
It also seems like another playbook I've seen repeatedly is that the initial team that builds the protocol will spin out the company, and they're getting paid. They may even raise money and pull it out from the protocol, and that's how they pay their salaries. And then they'll grow, and then they'll have enough money that they set aside a foundation. So the foundation might have $20 million. I was interviewing a guy from DeSo. It was Decentralized Social Protocol. And they have a foundation. And this is true. I interviewed the guys from Near Foundation. They had the same thing, and some others. And the foundation, the purpose of it, a major purpose of it, is to invest in developers on the protocol. So people building on the platform, which makes, to your point, it makes sense, because if you can get the developers in,
that's the way to do it.
And so it's like pulling off profits to reinvest in people to build. The other thing that seems to be a big emphasis, maybe even earlier than that, is the Telegram groups, like getting people active, communicating in Telegram or Discord, seems to be like step one when you want to grow out the community. So I think of it as like, get a core team, build out something, build a community, scale. Maybe there's a step in between there that I'm missing, but scale the market cap, spin out a foundation, reinvest in developers, and the developers create products that then attract new users, and that's the cycle. Am I missing a step in there, or does that make sense?
I think that's really well said, and I haven't heard anyone articulate it like that, but you've done a good job. And those are all best practices, everything from the Telegram or Discord group all the way up to the foundation. The only thing I'll add to it is that the foundation's job isn't done when they attract more developers. You got to get the word out about those developers. Like, you've got to make the developers the star, and that's where we come in with the marketing, and helping basically, publicize those stories to the wider group. So that's where the PR effort should be spent, if there are any. But it's not getting an article written up in Forbes or the Wall Street Journal. It's much more about telling the story of these people who are building on your platform and making them the heroes, so that then their products can grow, and that will in turn benefit you by just attracting more users to the overall ecosystem.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even being on this podcast, I get a lot of inbound from PR agencies on behalf of projects, like crypto projects, payment projects, and
crazy.
Yeah, and I suppose that's part of their PR campaign. How do you split PR and marketing conceptually? How should people think about that difference?
PR is just a very different animal from marketing, and it's very different outcomes. And again, people, especially crypto folks, confuse the two. So PR is really good when you already have all of your marketing activities set up around a product that works. So step one is like, get the product working.
Yeah,
so back to your point, like, get the product working, get something launched, get your Telegram or your Discord group so that you can be hearing from your customers, right? That's just classic business 101. Listen to what your customers, your users are telling you. Continue to iterate on the product until you've got something that's really great. Then you can use marketing to add some more fuel to
Give
that
me an
fire
example.
and to start to
how do
scale
you
it up.
Think of I'm sending MailChimp emails out, that's marketing. If I'm reaching out to
100%.
podcasts, that's PR.
Newsletter list is just like nuts and bolts, block and tackle marketing 101. So if you build a newsletter list, it's the easiest form of marketing and one of the most effective, because it goes right into people's inboxes. Everybody checks their email. And also, it's people have raised their hand and signed up for your newsletter who said, I want to learn more. So it's just the basics. And you'd be surprised by how many sophisticated companies don't do newsletters or treat them like an afterthought. But meanwhile, they'll go pay, hundreds of thousands of dollars for Google AdWords or what have you. So newsletter is 101. And then your own website, like, that's the next kind of cheapest or easiest thing to do. So invest in the content on your own website, in your blog, talk about the product. Again, all the stuff where, developer stories, your own team stories, etc. If you don't have a blog, you can create a Medium blog. So those are sort of the basics. And then you can get into paid marketing. Once you've got some traction going with all this, you can get into LinkedIn ads or Google ads or things like that. Then from there, you kind of go public. You get to the foundation piece of the ladder that you're talking about.
Is that highly effective for companies out there in crypto, buying ads on Google, LinkedIn? I guess in this case, they're not buying ads to reach users. I guess user as being defined as somebody who's purchasing their token. They're generally targeting developers when they're launching these marketing campaigns?
Well, it depends. It's hard to paint with a broad brush on that one, because it depends on what the crypto project is, and is it more B2B? Is it B2C? Is it sort of developer focused? So it depends on where you want to go. LinkedIn does have pretty good targeting, all in all. So usually when you get to a certain point, it's at least worth testing.
What point? Where do you think companies should say, okay, you should be doing LinkedIn ads?
I think if you've got enough money coming in the door or enough investment, like Reed Hastings from LinkedIn, actually the founder, has a great series of classes that he did at Stanford on YouTube, all about scaling, and highly recommend him. And I think in the first class, he talks about there's a feeling that you get when you get to the point where it clicks. Like, you've got a product now. It may not be perfect, but you've got traction. You've got something that is going to catch on. And you're sort of hearing that feedback again from your small group of initial users. And once you're there, you can then start putting either more money into it if you have that investment capital, or if it's actually bringing in money, even better yet. That's the time to do it. It's not the time to do it when you're still trying to find the product market fit. You're still trying to work out the bugs. You've only got a handful of new users, and you're like, I think if I just pay for the users, they'll come in and stick around, because they won't, most likely.
Yeah. So you didn't break it down by revenue. You didn't say after you have, 100,000 a month in revenue, or this is speaking more broadly outside of crypto per se, but do you think dollars is a useful proxy for figuring out if you have that product market fit and should turn on ads, or is it more of a soft?
Yeah, again, I think it's hard to give a one size fits all answer. I mean, one thing that you might look at, for example, is kind of your churn rate. So if you have something that's kind of a recurring cost, right, a recurring fee, or it's a subscription-based SaaS product or something like that, you might look at that churn rate and say, okay, we can get this down below, 3%. We've probably got something here that we can put more money into that, and this will grow. So any numbers you can get on either the lifetime value of a customer or how much it's costing you to acquire a new customer with everything you're doing to date, how much, how many people you're losing each month, that's your churn rate. Those numbers are super helpful because they at least give you the beginnings of a model that you can figure out, is it time now to start putting money into paid marketing?
Yeah. And do you see some new ways of doing business in terms of marketing? Obviously, Substack is, a really big influence. Medium used to be. I'm not sure if they're still as influential as they once were. Email marketing doesn't seem to be ever going away, and it's been around forever. Obviously, social. So having an active, probably Twitter, building Discord, Telegram. I mean, you start to add these things up and they're kind of overwhelming if you're a relatively small team. Are there other things that I'm not even including here that you think are important, or how do you even think about stack ranking these? Like you have a relatively small team, say it's 10 people, but they have something that's working. What kind of advice do you feel is appropriate?
Yeah, I think you've hit the major buckets. So, I mean, in sort of rank order, I would say get a newsletter going, get some kind of content engine going. Again, that's what we do at Media Shower. But, whether that's a blog or, just content for the newsletter, or both, you could do a blog and then feature that in the newsletter. And then that content can also be used on social as well. So those are kind of the nuts and bolts right there. And that's all relatively free or cheap. It's just your time and energy that it takes, which of course is substantial, but you're not putting any money into that as you do with paid media channels. If you can get those going, you're not only going to be starting to get your brand message refined, you're going to start, evangelizing your product. You're going to start talking and learning about who your customers are and hearing feedback on the stuff you're putting out there. So it has all of these wonderful benefits if you can just do kind of those basics at the beginning. Yeah. Then you start to know if you got a product market fit and can scale up from there.
Yeah, the thing I struggle with in running previous startups is like, you want to be on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, putting out the newsletter, doing maybe like a Telegram group, but how do you get the quality high enough that you're proud to publish it? Because I fear sometimes putting out content that is just like blah. You get those emails from some companies and it's like, this is just useless information. It's just like below BuzzFeed stuff. And I sometimes think nothing is better than that. I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong way to think about it, but it's if you're a founder or a lead developer or somebody who's intelligible about the product in the company, and you're going to spend time every week writing a newsletter, that's fantastic. If you set aside an hour or two to write something, but it's just not realistic. Oftentimes, like doing this podcast, it's a time commitment. I've gotten into a flow of it in my life and it fits and it works and I enjoy it. But that's hard to get into. It's hard to say, okay, every Friday I'm going to reserve 3 to 6 p.m. to write this article and then push it out there. Do you think that's like critical to do, or is it okay to have kind of, garbage news? Garbage isn't the right word, but lower quality newsletters, or is it okay to do nothing? I don't know. I don't know if any of this makes sense, but this is something I would struggle with.
Let me go back to my first story, which was, writing this blog for 4 years, just because I was passionate about creating it, just like you're passionate about creating this podcast. So you do have to find a way to tap into your passion. Right. Obviously, not everybody's a good writer, and obviously not everybody has the time to do this. If you don't, find someone who does and either hire them or, get them to somehow work for you to do that, and do it really well with a high, the highest standard of quality that you can, but not perfection. We talk a lot in our company. We see a lot of marketing managers and companies paralyzed by perfection. So, the great is what we're going for, not the perfect. The perfect is the enemy of the great these days sometimes. So if you can do that, tap into your passion or find someone who can, and you can do this regularly. We talk about consistency and persistency. So you got to do it within a regular drumbeat, just like your podcast, and you've got to stick with it. So you really have to commit to doing this for, at least 6 to 12 months. If you can do that, you're going to learn so much from that process. And there's going to be so many good things that are going to come out of that one way or the other, some expected and some unexpected, as I'm sure has been your case with the podcast.
Yeah. The podcast, it just works for me. I'm not a writer nearly as much as I enjoy talking to people. I learn much more this way. But I do feel there's a pressure to write because SEO indexes on Google and people want their sites indexed. You could probably transcribe podcasts and probably get some kind of, results similar to that on SEO. But it does seem so many companies, I don't know the percentage, but in my experience, so many founders I talk to, they'll just put out content, hire somebody that's inexpensive, and then every 2-3 days they push out a blog article, and it's not that interesting, but it has all the right keywords and checks the box, and then they move on and do something else. And I always question, what is that? Is that useful? Is Google actually able to synthesize whether this is valuable content or not? And obviously some content's probably better than no content, but I think of kind of earlier in our conversation, we were talking about the exponential rates of returns for some. It's there's a few blogs I can name off. Buffer is one of them that comes to mind, this company. They invest a lot into this blog. It's awesome. It's got images and videos and links and all this stuff, and it's valuable, insightful content. And then there's everyone else. And I don't know. I'm well, maybe it's a niche thing. You have to just win your specific tiny niche and be the loudest voice in that area. I think it's fascinating. I not many people talk about this, at least is what I hear, and it's interesting.
Yeah, and I've spent a career studying this. So I think that what you're identifying with the Buffer blog is passion. You're identifying somebody who's overseeing that product, the blog product, and really putting a lot of love and care into that. So I'm going to come back to this idea of passion, of finding what you want to put out into the world. And there's a sense that you're doing much more than is called for. Nobody asked you to do over 300 episodes of this podcast. Probably nobody asked you to do any episodes of the podcast. But you're doing it because you see that there is something valuable to be added to the world. And again, when we talk about principles or laws, the way the world works, it's been my experience that when we put something good out into the world, something good always comes back in return. And many times that's in a very different way than we expected it to come back to us. But something good always does come back. And that's the idea behind your marketing or your communication with your company. Either if you're doing it or you're finding somebody who's got that sense of passion, who's not just writing an SEO optimized blog and ticking the box and publishing it, as you said, but that's really taking the time to do something that's useful or interesting or artistic or just creative. It's going to come back to you in some kind of positive way.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Today, especially, 2022, it feels like the momentum of society and investors and the economy is pushing us towards creating products that compensate people who create. Like my brother started this company called Cameo, and they're quite a large company now, but all they do is allow people to connect with, allow influencers to effectively get paid by people who want individual personal videos of them. And that great idea. They're doing fantastic stuff, but it's just, they're riding the wave. The wave is, how do we facilitate a loop from the people who are producing valuable stuff on the internet to people who are consuming it in a way that they can get compensated for it so they can do more of it. And then the cycle goes on. And it's like this loop, positive feedback loop that's funneling and feeding creativity, which is an optimistic viewpoint on it, but it really does seem to be true. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got folks like my son was showing me this channel, Stuff Made Here. Have you seen this guy on YouTube? So it's this genius inventor slash physicist. He's got like these giant 3D printing machines. He just makes crazy stuff. Like he made a bat that has like an explosive spring-loaded thing, and he hit the world's longest home run. He's crazy. He's like a mad scientist, for real. And this guy must spend a month on every one of these videos, like building these crazy contraptions. There's no market for this that I can see. He's doing this out of love and passion. Yet, at the same time, like, first of all, he's got a crazy amount of subscribers, so he's getting the ad revenue. And second, like, he's got like all these people coming to him and like with these crazy engineering challenges for which he can charge an arm and a leg because they know he can actually build this stuff. So that's an example of when you put these good things out there, sometimes without any business acumen at all, it can often come back to you in a way that's going to benefit you financially, and if not, in some other way.
I love it, man. It's motivating. It's motivating for anyone who's thinking about putting something out there in any form that they care about. And a lot of people are held back because they're like, well, it's not going to be, I can't monetize it. It's not a real job. I don't see any pathway to that. I mean, Instagram just a couple of days ago launched subscriptions. They're going to come out with this new product that people can subscribe to different influencers on social media, or Instagram specifically, and charge for the content. And it's just another example, whether it's Instagram doing this or YouTube doing rev share or Cameo or whatever. It's like, it's kind of a really exciting time for this. So yeah, and you don't get invited to that overnight. So you have to be continually investing in that new content, again, in putting good stuff out there just because you're passionate about it. And one other example is on LinkedIn, I've been publishing my own blogs for like the last 5 or 6 years. So when I write a blog, we post it to Bitcoin Market Journal, we post it to the Media Shower blog, Medium, and so forth. And we started using the LinkedIn blog platform. Well, I don't know, maybe a month ago, LinkedIn reached out and said, hey, would you like to be part of our beta rollout of the new LinkedIn newsletter feature, which you may know, like, it's kind of invite only, but we'll send it out to a much wider audience of LinkedIn subscribers. So it's just a good example of like, I was chosen purely from an algorithm because I had posted a lot of blog content already on LinkedIn and had pretty good, responses and referrals. So because of that, now I'm in that, and that is going to help it grow. Just like with Instagram, if you've already got a following, now you're going to be invited to this influencer program and so forth. But you got to start somewhere, and that's just creating good stuff with consistency and persistency. Yeah, easier said, obviously. Well, speaking of, congrats, John, on all the books you've written and all the progress you've made in your career, ups and downs. It's an exciting journey to witness, and I really appreciate your time coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's a lot of fun.
All right. Take care, man.